Hello, it's Joel Hufford from the Havant Thicket Reservoir Communications team, here to share some information with you ahead of our stakeholder briefing on the 2nd of April 2025 about the Havant Thicket Reservoir Visitor Centre and the next steps in designing the centre and its associated facilities. With me today is my colleague Joe. Joe, did you just want to introduce yourself about your role on the project so far?
Hi everyone. Yes, Joe Farrer. I supported Portsmouth Water in leading the original planning application for the reservoir scheme, which we submitted in October 2020 and got approval in October 2021. Really looking forward to progressing this phase of the visitor centre.
Thanks very much to Joe. And just a reminder, we're giving you this information in advance. So if you're coming to the event on the 2nd of April, you can come armed with questions and comments and feedback for us and submit that as part of our work to gather feedback from stakeholders to shape the design. If you can't make the event, please do give us your feedback by the 16th of April and we'll work it into the overall package of feedback that we will take into account when we're looking at the design for the visitor centre, and we'll talk through at the event and afterwards as well, just the timeline for next steps too. So let's share some slides with you to begin with. So the opening slide here in glorious Technicolor is the view of what the reservoir site could look like once it's completed. So this is looking from west to east, so from the Warren Park side over towards the Rowlands Castle side. On the right-hand side of the picture, the south of the reservoir site, you've got Staunton Country Park, and in the north of the reservoir site, towards the top of the picture, you've got Havant Thicket Woodlands. So the area we're talking about today is circled in that yellow circle there in the northwest corner of the reservoir site, and that's where the visitor centre and things like the car park, the picnic area, the play area are due to be located, and that's the area we're talking about today. Little bit of a closer up map on the right that shows you the location of the reservoir visitor centre in that northwest corner and the various facilities that will go with it. And just a reminder, in October 2021, as part of that overall planning approval that Joe touched upon for the reservoir scheme, we received outline planning consent for the visitor centre, its car park and the various outdoor facilities for recreation. We're now in the opening stages of the process for developing the detailed design for that visitor centre in particular, with a reserve matters planning application due to be submitted to Havant Borough Council later this year. As part of the budget that's approved by regulator Ofwat for the reservoir scheme, there is an allocation of £3.1 million for the visitor centre and a further £1.8 million for the other elements you can see on the map. Of course, as with all aspects of the reservoir project, we want to maximise the benefits that will be delivered. At the same time, we want to provide excellent value for customers' money. And a reminder, it's Southern Water drinking water customers who are ultimately funding the reservoir scheme through their bills. Listed at the bottom of the slide on the left-hand side, you can see the principles we're working to in designing the visitor centre and those other facilities. And in a nutshell, it's about making it as accessible as possible for people, no matter your age or your ability to move around. We want to make it a place that people can enjoy, but in a quiet way, as if you're out into the countryside, which is a site that's always been that type of site. We want to make sure that people can improve their health and well-being. They can expand their mind in terms of education through the visitor centre and the rest of the elements we're talking about today. And we also want to support the environment, both in terms of maximising biodiversity at the reservoir site, but also making the visitor centre and anything that goes with it as sustainable as possible in terms of its design. So that's enough from me for now. I'll hand over to Joe just to talk more in detail about the planning aspects.
Great, thanks, Joel. So this next slide zooms in a little bit more on the visitor centre and what's been agreed in terms of the outline planning approval. We want to ensure the centre enables visitors to connect with nature and enjoy the views across and around the reservoir. At the same time, we need to ensure the wildlife is protected and isn't disturbed. The visitor centre building will have a maximum width of 35 metres and a maximum length of 55 metres. Those dimensions are marked in yellow on the slide. This isn't necessarily how big it will be, it's just that's the biggest it can be. The building will also have a maximum height of 10 metres. So these measurements allow sufficient flexibility within which the detailed design can be developed. The area marked in red on the plan shows the zone within which the building will be located. And again, there's flexibility there. It could be on the land to the west or slightly into the water to the east. The location of the centre and its design will be developed with input from you and our other stakeholders. Still, next slide. So this is a visualisation that we included in the original application, just to give an indication of what the visitor centre and the educational bird hide could look like, located near the western end of the reservoir's wetland area. The two structures look quite close together here, but as you may recall from the map we showed earlier, the bird hide will be located away from the visitor centre to the northeast. The exterior of the visitor centre and the bird hide will have a natural appearance to reflect the surrounding habitats, combined with large areas of glazing to provide views across the wetlands and the reservoir. Next slide. The visitor centre will be single storey, which will have level access to all public areas, including access from a cafe to a terrace. This is to make the building easily accessible to people with different types of mobility. Wayfinding signposts and markers on the route to the centre and hide will be provided and made from materials in keeping with natural surroundings. Sympathetic lighting will be provided at key facilities, plus along all the routes that the visitors will use. Next one. These slides just show what the view could be like from the visitor centre area across the wetland. And then I'll hand over to Joel for this next one.
Yep, so this slide is really just to mainly give you an idea of all the different elements we want to bring together in the visitor centre. Again, this picture is just an idea of how it could look, with a lot of work to be done in terms of the design and getting input from stakeholders. But it's really just to give you an idea of all the different things we want to have the visitor centre deliver ultimately. So, for example, it will be embedded in the landscape. There'll be somewhere that can maximize the view from the visitor centre, so whether that's a sort of large set of windows, whatever it might be, that people really feel they're looking out across the reservoir and the wetland. Also that there might be an external terrace there that again makes people feel closer to nature as well, with a view over the wetlands. Plus as well, there's elements like a picnic and play area. There's also somewhere we can use as an education space, and really just to make people feel part of the reservoir site overall.
Thanks, Joe. So the centre will be designed to house three main functions. This diagram shows the relationship and connectivity between the different areas that are required. It's not a layout map, but it sort of sets out the different parts of the centre and how they need to link and fit with each other. So the three main centre functions are as follows. We've got the cafe, and then an education and community space, and staff and office areas. So the centre design will need to include a clear entrance, flexibility between the cafe and educational space, access to a terrace, and an outside educational space. So the next slide shows some photos which are taken from the design and access statement document that we submitted as part of the reservoir planning application approved in October 2021. And that document's still on the council's planning portal if you wanted to have a look. The images give an indication of the type of materials that could be used for the visitor centre and how these have been used in other similar buildings. As part of the outline planning approval that was granted for the visitor centre and the recreational facilities in 2021, there are some requirements we need to meet in the detailed design for the centre and the related facilities. And these include consideration of the location of the play area. In the plan, we showed it fairly close to the bin store, so the requirements ask us to look for a more suitable location. The building needs to achieve BREEAM Very Good certification or contribute to a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. CCTV cameras should be linked to a monitoring station to provide immediate response to incidents as they're occurring. We need to provide electric vehicle parking spaces and charging points, and cycle parking with a covered Sheffield stand.
So moving away from the visitor centre for a moment, we're going to talk about the educational bird hide. So this is just a slide to remind you of that location. So in the picture that we showed you earlier, which you can kind of see a grab of in the bottom right of the slide, it looked quite close to the visitor centre. As you can see from the map on the left, it's actually a good few yards away. So you've got the visitor centre in the centre of the picture, and then moving towards the top right-hand corner towards the northeast, you've got the bird hide that will be there. So Joe's just going to talk a bit more about the detail around the potential design for that.
Thanks, Jill. So this bird hide is bigger than a normal bird hide. It's going to be designed to accommodate a school group with a lobby area. So again, it will have parameters that we need to design within. So a maximum footprint of 9 meters by 20 meters, and that's marked in yellow on the map. And it will also be up to 5 meters in height. And the red area shown on the map is the zone in which the hide can be located. So anywhere within that red box. And then the next slide gives an indication of the type of materials that could be used for this educational hide and how these have been used in other similar buildings.
And then final slide from us is about the car parks. That's visitors to the reservoir site to use. This will be located to the west of the visitor centre. The car park will have 193 spaces for cars or vans, 70 overflow spaces on the western edge of the parking area. There'll be 12 accessible parking spaces close to the visitor centre in line with the County Council's highways parking strategy and guidance. There'll also be 3 parking spaces for buses or coaches. And just a reminder that parking provision has been designed based on the medium level visitor numbers scenario for the reservoir site that was selected by stakeholders, plus factoring in an allowance for population growth also as well, so an element of future proofing. The medium visitor number scenario formed the basis for the reservoir planning application that was approved back in October 2021. So that's what the recreational offering has been scaled to. And the design of the car park will be in keeping with the rural nature of the reservoir site. There'll be a woodland feel as far as possible to improve connectivity for wildlife between Bells Copse and Havant Thicket Woodland. And the car park will be set amongst trees, creating a woodland feel and providing a sense of screening to the car park. So all that remains to say is thanks for watching from me and Joe, and we look forward to seeing as many people as we can on the 2nd of April at the Dickinson Centre or online. Thank you.